Hey guys, it's Astrid, and I wanted to make another quick video to show you what to look for in a healthy orchid that you're going to pick up from the store. You might be new to orchids, you might think, oh, what do I do? How do I know if this plant is just going to up and die on me? So I wanted to show you some good things to look for in an orchid. So the first thing you want to look for, like right off the bat, when you're buying an orchid, if there's more than one of the orchid that you're interested in buying, get the one that has the most flowers still in bud rather than blooming. Because when you have flowers that are blooming, sometimes they can last, a few weeks. Phalaenopsis orchids, the most common kind of orchids you can find in the store, tend to bloom for over a month, maybe two, maybe even three. But most other orchid types tend to bloom only 2 to 4 weeks, and that's pretty much a bummer. But if you have a spike that came up and is in bloom, and another spike that's just barely opening, and another spike that hasn't started to open yet, you'll have a longer blooming duration overall. If you can't find an orchid that has lots and lots of green buds like this one, you can always look for one just that has at least a few buds on the tip that haven't opened yet. Obviously, it's not a deal breaker if the plant's not got any buds on it right now, but it will mean that you don't get to enjoy the flowers as long right away, and that's part of the reason we buy orchids. But if you have more patience than I do, you can always buy an orchid with plenty of flowers on it. That's one of the less important things, but just a personal thing I like to mention. Now, what's the next thing we look for in a healthy orchid? Well, we look to see that the leaves are pretty firm. I mean, of course, in these thin-leafed orchids, they're going to be easier to bend and manipulate, but they should be firm. They should have a good thickness to them. They shouldn't feel wilty, and all these are standing up so beautifully. That's a good sign that they're healthy. Additionally, these leaves are all smooth. None of them have pleating, wiggling, wrinkling, or any accordion shapes, which means the plant hasn't been underwatered. If you see a lot of wrinkly leaves or accordion shaped leaves or anything like that, it might be good to pass up on that particular orchid. But if it looks like the bulbs are still healthy, it may just mean the orchid suffered in the past but is doing better now. Alright, so what's the next thing we look for? Well, the next thing we look for on the leaves is just to make sure that the leaves are not showing signs of rot, damage, insect infestation, or other things. If you see a spot here or there that has a little black dot, that's okay. If you see this funny white stuff on the leaves, that's usually just a treatment from the nursery. I think they put it on all their plants to fight fungus and pests. But if you see any really big black spots or holes or anything that's really alarming, maybe don't pick up that orchid. Additionally, know that it's okay for your orchid to have some damage on the leaves. Let me show you what I mean. Like in transport, orchids often get munched and crunched and torn a little bit, so if you have a leaf that has some scratches on it, that's okay. Now, what do we look for next? Well, because we're talking about Oncidium type orchids, obviously we're going to look at the pseudobulbs. What's a pseudobulb? Well, this is a pseudobulb. These bulbs grow up and get fat and store energy for the plant. Now, sometimes you'll see pseudobulbs that are little and without leaves on the top. That's okay. Older pseudobulbs tend to look like that. Sometimes the older ones may be wrinkly, but you generally want to look for pseudobulbs that are smooth, like this one. In your home environment, they may get a little more wrinkled because we don't water as perfectly as nurseries do, but in general you want your pseudobulbs to appear nice and smooth, and if they're severely wrinkled, don't pick up that plant because it's probably in bad shape. Another thing about pseudobulbs is to count how many the plant has. So you can look, this plant has 1, 2, 3 big pseudobulbs and one little old one, probably from when it was a seedling. Now that's good, but 3 pseudobulbs isn't so many. If you find a plant with more pseudobulbs, that means it's better established and will probably give you more flowers the next time it blooms. This plant has a new growth coming out right down here, but it's only one. You see that little new growths peek out from the very bottom of the pseudobulb, and flowers peek out from inside the leaves in here. But if it only has one new pseudobulb, it may only give you 1 or 2 flower spikes the next time it blooms, whereas one like this that has just too many pseudobulbs for me to count and has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 new growths coming around. If it has that many new growths, that means the next season all these new growths have the possibility to bloom. So next time it blooms, it might give you 3, 4, 5 flower spikes if you're very lucky. All right, what do we look for next? Well, if you have little sheaths, old sheaths on the leaves like this, you do want to peel them back and look for any pests, although this one's thin. You just want to look and make sure there's not black stuff hiding in here or anything that looks concerning, because if there is, it could be a sign of a problem, but this looks pretty healthy. And then you want to look at the roots. In Oncidium type orchids, roots should look white or, come on camera, focus. Roots should look white and they're pretty thin. That's okay for them to be thin. I'm sorry my camera's not focusing. They can sometimes have a little green appearance from algae, but they should be white. And the new growth should be putting out the most new roots. That's what establishes new roots for the plant, is the new growths. If you see roots coming out of the sides and the bottom of your pot, that's a pretty good sign. Additionally, look and make sure there's not mold or pests hiding out on the bottom of the pot or anywhere like that. Alright, so we've established that a plant that has more pseudobulbs and more new growths will probably give you more flowers within a year or two. A plant that has fewer pseudobulbs will probably give you fewer flowers in a year or two, but they can both be equally satisfying. Yeah, that's my basic things. One more thing that you can do. If you want to see if a plant has any new flower spikes coming up, what you do is you just gently peek in between the leaves and the bulb, and sometimes you'll see that there's a new flower spike. I'm pretty sure this is a flower spike rather than a new growth. And if you peek around all the pseudobulbs, especially ones that already have one spike, just peek in and you may find, look there, you see that? Another flower spike. So this plant has 1, 2, 3, and it has 2 more flower spikes coming. So if you want to know another good plant and another way to increase the blooming duration of your plant, look for those sneaky little hiding flower spikes. Alright, I hope that I've done a good job explaining to you how to see what a healthy orchid looks like. I can't really tell you what not to look for because I don't have any examples for it, but if you look for these positive things and use your common sense, you'll probably pick up lots of orchids that are in pretty good shape that will treat you well for a long time. It's okay to sometimes pick up a rescue orchid, an orchid in bad shape, but it's a little disheartening when all you have are all these little sick orchids that take years and years to recover. It's frustrating. So it's nice to buy healthy plants too. Alright, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye guys.